So, Jason, I know we haven't talked about, at least not on the show, some of the other things that we're working on in our personal businesses, but
Mhm.
I'm shooting a wedding this weekend. So, it's actually a vow renewal. It's turned into a vow renewal, a gender reveal. It's a blended family. So, there's some first looks and all of this stuff. I finally got the schedule. So, yeah, it's turning into actually a really good opportunity for me to film that and then have some footage and those kinds of things to show people what I can do. So awesome,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
But one of the things I was worried about was audio because it's hard to get that good audio. And so I ordered a mic. Now I didn't order a high end one because I'm just experimenting with this and I don't want to,
Right.
you know, I think the highest end one that was recommended is like an $800 microphone. No, thank you yet.
Yeah.
Right.
Not yet anyway. Yeah.
No. So I ordered a microphone. They said it captured really, really good audio. So it came in yesterday and I did tests and I wanted to see the difference between capturing the audio on the iPhone itself versus
Mhm.
capturing the audio on this new microphone. Everybody I had listened to the two clips that I made as equal as I could,
Mhm.
guess which sound they preferred?
Was it the iPhone?
It was the iPhone.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So I think the problem is that these shotgun mics, right, that are pointing at a certain direction, they also, this one doesn't have the ability to adjust voice isolation versus
Right.
capture everything. And so you just get a richer sound just from the phone itself. So I had bought that microphone and an adapter to be able to hold it. So both of those are probably going back. And then the adapter wasn't working. So I had already gone into my car Amazon and ordered two different ones that would make it easier. So I
Yeah.
hurried and canceled those. But yeah, shock of shocks, the iPhone microphone captured the audio way better. So I think I'm going to be okay because they're going to use a microphone when they do their vows. It's not a
Okay.
huge venue. It's only like 100 people attending. So it's not like this massive venue. So that's what I'll be doing this weekend. I won't be using that fancy shotgun mic. I'll be just using the iPhone to capture the video and audio, and we'll see how that's going to go.
Right. Right. And we're gonna talk about it later when we talk about, you know, tech that we hate. And I gotta admit, that's the exact situation that you just explained is one of the things I hate about technology. And again, we're gonna talk about it later, so I'm not gonna go too much into it, but man, what a waste of tech when you buy all of these peripheral, pieces of technology and the best thing is what you have right there in your pocket.
Yep.
It just is kind of a bummer, but I'm glad you did the testing and stuff before instead of, testing it live like that.
Yep. Well, so we're not recording next week. We already know that because I'll be
Right.
traveling back from this event. So we'll know before we record the next show, and I'll have to report back on how it goes. Welcome to Two Grandpas Talking Tech. I'm your host, Grandpa Greg.
And I'm your host, Jay Benjamin or iPad Grandpa. Thanks for joining us today.
So this is a little different episode. I know we've four of the deep dives. We have one more that we
Yeah.
still want to do. But today is going to be more of a intro episode. We released a trailer to try and introduce folks into what we're trying to do with the podcast, but we wanted to go a little bit deeper on a few of those topics today. But before we do that, I want to dive into some quick news. We're not going to be a news show, but if we can
Yeah.
record stuff that's relevant, let's go ahead and do it. I'm going to mix up the order that we're doing this because we both put this in there. Jason, we said that the iPhone 17 Pro Max is absolutely the best phone in existence, right?
Yep.
That was our statement in the iPhone stuff.
Yep.
All right.
That was it.
So this has now been proven at an extraterrestrial level because the astronauts, they just went around the moon, right? They just did their flyby around the moon and they
Right.
are taking epic pictures and video. And what are they using to take those pictures? What did NASA approve for them to take with them?
Yep. Yep. The iPhone.
The iPhone 17 Pro Max is in space going around the moon. And I did a little bit of research. It appears that AirPods have also gone into space. That seems to be a choice there too. But
Yeah.
I just thought this was super cool. Apple actually came out and said they did not work with NASA to try and get them to approve these. It was just NASA's process that they went through. So those awesome pictures that are coming back are being shot with the best iPhone ever, at least for what?
Yeah.
A few more months?
Yeah. Yeah. And I saw this and they have plenty of equipment, right? They're doing their NASA recording and their telemetry and all of that on specialized equipment. But I'm willing to bet. Now I could be totally wrong. Again, we're not industry insiders, but I want to bet that Apple somehow got a prototype for the 18 Pro Max on there, right? Wouldn't that be a cool commercial to say this is the furthest a phone has been, and it's an iPhone away from the Earth. The furthest a device has been taking these pictures, and it's an iPhone. Who
Yep.
would pass up that opportunity? I want to bet we'll revisit this in a few months when all of the promotion videos and stuff come out. But Apple is not going to pass this opportunity up to say that
Yep.
we've taken pictures on an iPhone from the other side of the moon. So
Yep.
yeah, really
Well,
cool.
so that's really, really, really cool. That's still going on right now. Just a couple of other things. One follow up item in our Mac episode,
Yep.
we said nobody buy the Mac Pro. And guess what? You can't buy it anymore. Apple officially killed it. It is
Yeah.
not for sale through their normal channels anymore. I'm sure there's inventory somewhere, but they came out and said, nope, if you want high end, you got to go with the Studio,
Yeah.
which right now is on major back order because of RAM
Yeah.
issues and the RAM shortage
Yeah.
that's going on, which maybe we'll talk about at some point.
Yeah,
But
I
that's
think you called it. You said the end was near. I
yeah,
think you called it. Yeah, we knew it was coming, so it's
yep.
officially dead now.
All right. The other thing, just to let everybody know, make sure you go in and check for updates on your devices. There have been some pretty important security updates in
Yes.
these latest releases. So you definitely want to be running the latest version, even if you have not updated to iOS 26 with the new look and feel and you're still on the older version. There still are security updates that have been released for that. So please go in, make sure your phone, your iPad, your Mac, everything is on the latest update because there are some pretty important security updates fixing some
Yeah.
vulnerabilities and stuff that are out there. And then the last thing is Apple has introduced a new business service. I think I want to dive into this on a different episode,
Okay.
but maybe we'll talk about it when we talk about services. But they're putting their hand into the MDM, mobile device management game, which when Jason and I were rolling out iPhones, how nice would it have been to have a built in Apple tool to
Right.
be able to manage everybody's devices, except for instead of having to use all the hacks that we had to use at the point. Now, there's a lot of other tools out there, Jamf and even Microsoft Suite, which is what my last job used. Those types of things work just fine. But back when we started, it was a kludge of a whole bunch of
Right.
weird things that we had to do to manage devices. So Apple's got that out there. It's free. It has built-in MDM, and you can also do business email, calendar, and some of those kinds of things. So we won't go into it in detail here, but there's your news. Those are the stories that have broken since we recorded in the last week. Jason, anything else I missed?
No, no, but two things I want to mention. It was always one of those, what are they thinking kind of deals, right? One, I've always said, why hadn't Apple taken the podcast platform and made it like a YouTube, monetized
Mm,
for creators and stuff, made it a video platform, more of a video platform, Um, podcast is the name synonymous with webcasting and things like that, right? They own the name podcast. Why isn't that platform bigger? And the other thing is, why hadn't they always done MDM? Right? We were selecting MDM software and programs to integrate iPhones into the enterprise structure. So why didn't the creator of the iPhone, or why didn't Apple already have an MDM and business email and calendar and basically a Microsoft Office suite of some kind, right? I know they had pages and numbers and things like that, but why not MDM? Already 10 years old now, right? Why are we just getting around to it now? So yeah, it was always one of those things like, what are you doing, Apple? This is a missed opportunity, but they had plenty of other things going on.
yeah.
So
Yep. Just to be clear, they are allowing video in podcasts now,
right,
but
right,
we are
right.
not doing that. So our video is all going to be sitting on YouTube for right now,
Yeah,
and audio only is going to be sitting in your favorite podcast player. Spotify allows video too. We're not there yet, right?
yeah,
Maybe we'll evolve into that kind of stuff. So,
Yeah. But imagine where we are now with podcasts, 10 years of development into it already, 11 years or however long,
right.
this is a road they should have went down years ago, but better late than never, I guess.
So today's episode, we don't want to spend an hour talking about ourselves, but we wanted to give a little bit more detail. We did the trailer. That was a quick introduction,
Yeah.
why we wanted to do the podcast, what we hope to accomplish. So we want to just go a little bit deeper on those types of things for any of you that are interested. And if you're going to take our advice, what kind of background do we really have on this kind of stuff? So I'll start with my background. So I started off in the call center world. I came home from a church mission and then went almost straight into call center work and then took a little break and then went back to call centers and then just got into leadership in those call centers, developing people, developing teams, workshops, helping dysfunctional teams become functional and high performing. That was how I got started. And then I moved to Texas as part of that job. And when I left that job, I took on turning a small help desk for Stewart Title
Mhm.
into a full blown services desk, building it out, getting all of the services in place. And so that's where I met Jason. I spent almost 10 years at Stewart doing various types of tech stuff. And as we just mentioned, we rolled out iPhones and had to pry Blackberries from people's cold, dead fingers because they
Yep.
just did not want to give up their Blackberries. Did a whole bunch of really cool stuff with technology. And that's when I got into making technology a tool. So super, super cool. Jason and I were the go-tos for all of the executive team. The best
Yeah.
part about that is they let us go buy all of the latest and greatest stuff to test it out, make sure it was good to go before they went on an international trip with just their iPad and their iPhone, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we had the latest and greatest all of the time. And even after I left that support position and moved on to a more strategic position, my boss was like, yeah, go buy the new iPad because I know they're still going to call you
Yeah.
and ask you what they need to do with it. So that was awesome. I got tired of being on call, frankly, 24/7. I had done that since my call center days. We'd get calls at 3 a.m. from executives in Germany in the airport or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And need to deal with stuff. So I got tired of that and I moved into digital transformation in the mortgage industry, taking that 3 inches of paperwork you sign when you buy a house and trying to make it all digital. So
Yeah.
then I had stops in product management and onboarding customers for those types of technologies. But one of the biggest things that I've always focused my career on has been customer experience. How do I solve problems? How do
Mhm.
I help things be better for end users of whatever the product or service may be, whether it's my staff or whether it's the technology we're building or the tools we're providing them, like the iPhones. That's what it was all about. So, always had that customer focus. And so that's my background. We'll talk about what we're currently working on here in just a minute. But, Jake, give us a little more detail.
I've been working in IT, in various roles for over 20 years, like I mentioned before. So I started at a company called SBC Global. This was years and years and years ago. It was a call center job. This was long before AT&T bought them out. So the company that is AT&T now, which AT&T has been around forever, um, but when they were forced to split, one of the companies was SBC Global, and they were DSL internet, dial-up internet, things like that. They were ISP. So what was interesting about that job was I was with people at the start of their internet journey, right? Their internet careers, their internet lives, right? This was long before social media and all of that. But I was there with them from taking the modem out of the box, configuring everything, setting up their first email address. And I was even the one to send them their first email. So usually it was hi or something like that. If they were at in a certain area or, Georgia or something like that, it was like Go Bulldogs or something like that. But yeah, I was generally that person they received their first email from and their first email address. So moved on from there to different companies, still doing in a support role kind of thing. And Greg mentioned that my path kind of led me to Stewart Title when I went to finish my degree, and the job placement program led me to Stewart Title, and that's where I met Greg. And Greg talked about it. He talked about the devices we should do and all of that. But if I can describe that job in one word, it'll just be fun. That's truly all I can say about it. It was work. It was really stressful at times. I learned a lot of skills and a lot of things like that. And Greg and I, we can do a deeper dive on our relationship and how we met each other. There was several people throughout my life, throughout my professional career, that I kind of latched on to, right? I learned a lot of things. But I think at the period in time in my life, I was finishing up school. I was starting a career that I love, which was working in mobility, working in desktop support and things like that. And I met Greg at the same time. He just had so much knowledge and so much experience that I just wanted to soak up all of that like a sponge. And again, we can do a deeper dive into Greg and our relationship because I still get from my family and stuff like, how are you friends with 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 this white guy in Utah? And I'm like, oh no, it's just different. He was here in Houston and we had a pretty good professional relationship and then we became good friends and stuff. But yeah, that period in that time and in my life was just added to my love of technology and things like that. So again, I'm not going to go too far into Stewart, but if I can just sum it up, that period in my life was just fun. Along with a lot of stress, along with a lot of long work hours and a lot of late nights working and things like that. But overall was just a really great experience. So after that, I ended up with another huge company. I'm not going to mention the name, but we did make the national news with the layoffs during COVID and all of that. It was quite a big deal because after round and round and round of layoffs, me and my partner, who we were still on, we made it through 3 or 4 rounds of layoffs because we were the ones that were in the IT office having to receive all of the iPhones and laptops and things like that and having to restore and everything. And we would get in and we wouldn't even turn on the lights sometimes. It was just me and him. And yeah, that all ended about midway through COVID for me. That kind of shut everything down, which kind of led my life in a different direction. And when we go over our current focuses and stuff, I'll give more details. But yeah, that's my background in IT. I've been in IT for quite a few years at various levels, whether it was just doing basic over the phone support to actual hands on. Like Greg said, we work hand in hand with some of our executive teams at the companies. And I went on to the next company and did most of the same things.
So, Jason, a lot of fun. That's where we started getting into technology as gadgets,
Right.
right? And then we kind of had to switch away from that. And we were, I think we switched to tools because we were constantly trying to push the limits of those gadgets
Yeah.
and see what they could do, right? When I finally left Stewart, my only computer was an iPad Pro with a keyboard and a mouse. And this was years and years and years ago. So it wasn't nearly as good.
Yeah.
But I was using software to remote into a Windows environment in the server room,
Yeah.
right? That's the kind of stuff that we were pushing it to do. And I think that's part of what started our transition away from technology as gadgets and these things that we're trying to figure out to the point where we're like, okay, they're stable enough. There's enough functionality that now we need to transition into how do we use these pieces of technology to solve problems
Right.
in
Right.
people's lives. Solving problems and getting into that technology and turning it into tools, not having it consume our lives, but allowing us to use the technology to enhance our lives. I think that's what we learned
Yeah.
out of that time at Stewart and why we've made this transition. And one of the reasons we want to do the podcast.
Yeah.
So Jason, what are you doing right now? Because yours is a little more out there compared to what we used to do than what mine is. So why don't you start with that?
So yeah, I have all of this training, my Network Plus, my wireless security, cellular technology, my associate's degree and all of that. And now I just sell popcorn. I mentioned briefly in the intro that the company got started because of our love for cruising, right? I work full time at my other job, and my wife and I we started doing it just extreme part time. Like and I mean extreme. And we were doing it like, we'll book a cruise, we'll have it coming up. We may do 2 or 3 events, a quarter or something like that. But what happened was we would just get a good response from our customers and stuff. And I can't tell you how many times I heard people will tell me this is the best kettle corn I've ever tasted. Like, and there's kettle corn everywhere. I got started by watching a kettle corn guy, and people would tell me like this is the best one I tasted, and would do a different flavor. this is the best flavor that I've ever tasted. And we got in such a good response that by the time I got laid off, it was my third time being laid off. The third time in my, in my professional career, with the last time being during COVID. I wanted to make myself unlayoffable, if that's a word. If I can create a word, I wanted to be unlayoffable. So again, this is my wife and I company, and if she lays me off, then yeah, I'm really in bad shape.
We'll have a different discussion if that happens.
Right, right. But yeah, and I've just taken the skills that I've learned. And I want to say the main one was some of the things I learned from you in my time as Stewart was customer service as a skill, right? It's not just having a good personality or having a good friendly personality. It's how to be able to work with someone to resolve their issue more so than just being nice or something like that. It's how do you really figure out the best solution for a problem for this person's problem, not just in general, not just following a flow chart. And that was my main issue that I had when we talk about outsourcing and stuff like that. You can teach people how to follow a flow chart to resolve an issue, step one, step two, step three, and follow that flow chart, but you can't teach them passion. And that was my number one concern. And that's my number one problem now, even calling tech support in my personal life. If you have to, they're usually just following a flow chart. They don't care what the issue
Yeah.
is. They're rushing to get to where they can escalate you to the next level and just dump you off with someone else. But yeah, yeah. I took a lot of the skills that I've learned throughout the years and we created this company and yeah, we've been doing great.
It's hard to teach somebody to take solution A and solution B and come up with creative solution C
Yeah,
when they want to just follow what's in front of them.
yeah,
And if I go back to when we were rolling out iPhones, there were no solutions. So that's something I hope we're going to be able to do on this show
yeah,
is, yes, we think the iPhone is the best phone for you, but okay, let's take that one level deeper and talk about what is the best way for you to use the iPhone
yes,
to get the most out of it, right? So I think that'll be great. And it doesn't really matter what business you're in. If you're selling popcorn or you're doing other things, it still all needs to be about the customer experience because at the end of the day, they pay your bills, right? So you've got to make that experience great for them. And if you're just going to give them standard stuff, they can go anywhere, they'll go to the bottom price.
yeah,
And if you don't want to compete on price, then you've got to compete on their overall experience. And we can get into that a whole lot more, especially when it comes to talking about how expensive Apple devices are, why I believe they're priced the way they are, and why I still continue to pay that. For
Greg, your career path is kind of like me. You went in a different direction, but whenever we have our conversations about you, and this is just my personal point of view, I'm always approaching it from an angle of how do I keep Greg? How do I keep Greg the man that I love and that I've learned so much and that you helped my family through so much stuff. You changed the whole trajectory of my career. So when you're bouncing ideas off of me or giving me, your ideas or what you're brainstorming, I'm always like, how do I keep Greg? So share with us, how your path has changed over the last
Yeah,
few years.
I haven't had a lot of career transitions. So
Yeah.
I worked for one big regional bank, and then I went to Stewart. Then I got laid off by Stewart and did some independent consulting work that was going super well for
Hmm.
about 9 months before I got recruited to go work at DocuSign and to help them build real estate products with digital signature and a whole bunch of other stuff like that. And that was really cool. Working for a Silicon Valley company, it was a very different
Yeah.
experience. I was able to be in the middle of a whole bunch of stuff. I transitioned from being a product manager to being an onboarding manager. So I was actually guiding a team that was implementing the products, which is, if I think of my ideal corporate jobby job, that's one of them, is leading a team that's so focused on helping customers solve problems and be successful.
Yeah.
My team was known for doing the exact same thing you and I did at Stewart, which is pushing the technology beyond
Yeah.
what it was intended to be able to do. So really enjoyed doing that. Then I got laid off. DocuSign had pretty large layoffs. They decided to back out of the real estate industry on a lot of their products. And so I was part of that. And so I went back to being an independent consultant. I had one primary customer that I helped actually do a swap out of one of their digital platforms, and then started doing some other strategic work for them. And then it just got to the point where they said, nope, if you really want to do the stuff that you want to do and that we want you to do, you have to be an employee.
Yeah. Right.
Ultimately, Jason and I had many long conversations about it and thought, you know what, it's worth a shot, right? Would I have preferred the ability to be flexible and stay independent and do all of those kinds of things and bring on more customers and mix in doing leadership? I've done leadership and team development sessions for Fortune 500 companies,
Hmm.
right? And would I have preferred to be doing a bunch of that kind of stuff? Yeah, but it was almost one of those too good to pass up opportunities to see how it would turn out. And I was hopeful that it would turn out to be my last corporate job
Yeah.
and that I could work there for 5 or 10 years and then be able to take a step back and spend time in a campground doing whatever else I wanted to do.
Yeah.
It just didn't turn out. And so I left. So I had done consulting with them for 2 years. I was an employee for about 9 months. And then the changes that were made, all of those kinds of things, it just wasn't a good fit for me. It also resulted in many long conversations with Jason about what I was going to do. And I just wanted to get back to some of my roots, personal development, leadership development, and working on that kind of stuff. So,
Yeah.
what that led me to was now I'm independent again and have been since October of last year. Slowed down a little bit. I just was burned out and tired. So I slowed down through the end of the year, and then we had some family stuff change. And so now I'm really kicking it in. I've got an online course that I have a first module created on. I've got the second module written
Hmm.
that I'm thinking about releasing. Um, Driving Uber, which has actually been an interesting experience, which we should talk about at some point from both a technology and a customer service
Yeah.
standpoint, because there's a ton of tech involved with that. And like I said, I'm going this weekend to um, be a videographer for a wedding, which I think would be really cool. And
Hmm.
we'll see if I enjoy that. So yeah, a few different irons in the fire. Really trying to avoid going back to corporate America because it would have to be a really, really good company with the right culture,
Yeah.
the right values, the right focuses for me to want to go back. It's not that I'm not looking at opportunities that are coming my way, but I don't know. So I've got a bunch of irons in the fire. Hopefully, some of them will start to pay off, including this show.
Right.
Hit the like, subscribe, share, do all of those kinds of cool things to help me justify spending more time on this show. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is one of the things I like about Greg. So you listen to that whole, the story that he just said, and he put it so eloquently, right? He put it nice and professionally. It just wasn't a good fit. You wanted to do other things. You thought you were going to be a good fit for it. You thought, you were going to thrive with this company, right? You were pretty excited from the start, and things just kind of went south.
Companies and leaders have to make decisions,
Yeah.
right? And they make the best decisions that they can make. And this is the conversation I had when I left,
Yeah.
right? Was these are the things that are concerning to me. The company was doing certain things that they wanted to keep
Yeah.
doing, and it just didn't align with what I wanted or what I expected. And so, that's fine.
Yeah.
That happens all the time. So,
Yeah.
so yeah.
And part of growing as a person, as an employee, is being able to recognize that. Recognizing, can you make those changes from your side, or can you change within yourself, or knowing when it's time to when to hold them and when to fold them, as the song says.
Yeah. Yep. So that's our professional stuff. We went into a little bit of where we live and some of that kind of stuff
Right.
in a previous episode, in the trailer episode. So if you want to hear a little bit of that, what I'd like to do is maybe just talk about some of our hobbies. And I'll go first on this one.
Yeah.
I'm sure we're going to talk about at least one of mine that would be in my intro, which is camping and RVing in detail. So I do live in an RV. It's stationary. I'm not moving around the campgrounds. You're not going to get to see every week a different view or a different city or a different campground or stuff like that. I'll move around here a little bit, but so camping is a huge passion of mine. That started when I was a kid. I'm already trying to figure out for the week of my birthday where I'm going camping
Hmm.
so that I can spend the whole week riding my mountain bike in the mountains. I live in southern Utah, so not really mountainy down here, more bluffs and rock and red rock, beautiful, all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. But I want to be up in the trees. Probably I'll go to my favorite area to ride my mountain bike. But I've had my mountain bike not quite 2 years at this point, the e-bike that I have.
Hmm.
And I think I'm over 1,500 miles on that bike. So I do like to put miles on my mountain bike. Beyond that, I read a ton. We can talk about that. It's all digital. I read everything digitally.
Right.
I think I've got 3 books going on right now. Um, I'm into music. And then I mentioned in the other trailer episode, family and faith. So I've got family living with me now. It's a huge focus. I help chauffeur and do all that kind of stuff while everybody's trying to balance that stuff out. And then I spend a lot of time with church stuff. I mentioned that I served a church mission. I spent 2 years in Brazil. I still spend a significant amount of time focused on that because it's a core part of who I am.
Yeah.
I've started to wean out some of the other things, Jason. Like, I don't play games nearly as much as I used to. I've really cut back on how much time I'm spending on social media and YouTube and replacing that with reading and doing some of these other things. So, those are my hobbies. How about you?
Yeah. So tech is probably my number one hobby, right? And even if it's just, like I said, tinkering with my home network, making sure everything is optimized, running smoothly as possible. Home automation, although I hadn't bought any good home, automation gadgets, any HomeKit gadgets lately. So nothing new there, but I still love it. I love music, namely, blues music. I love going into my garage when I have the time and tinkering around with old arcades. Like I love restoring old arcades. I'm currently on my third one, which is one of the ones that I've always wanted. The first two was some I just got a deal on and wanted the challenge, right? Wanted to see how can I take something that's busted and broken and restoring it to a good like new or almost new condition, and it's worked out. So this one that I'm working on currently is a Miss Pac-Man. Again, I love to go in the garage, turn on some blues, or lately it's been 80s music. I love my 80s music and restoring my Miss Pac-Man. It's a lot of fun. I do game when I can. It's just I'm like you, I just don't have much time for it lately. My favorite game, which is Fallout, you'll see a lot of Fallout shirts that I'm wearing. I recently had one of the big events I like to play, so I'll pay for my monthly membership, my online membership, and I'll play that for the 2 weeks or 3 weeks that they're having the event. And then once it's over with, I usually just wait till the next big event or something like that. I do ride my motorcycle. Again, I mentioned before, I love riding my motorcycle, but I'm not quite fond of the leather and the vest and the biker clubs and the stuff like that. Like I really just ride solo because I love the freedom of being out on the road and riding, hanging out and drinking and the loud music and stuff like that is not really my scene. I've been invited to plenty of those parties. I've been invited to ride with certain clubs and stuff like that. And it's all good for that one day, but not something that I'm into doing every weekend. And other than that, cruising is really a big part of my life. Me, my family, my kids, they all love it. We love just and we all have our different way of cruising, right? We get on the ship and I love the live music and I love the trivias and stuff like that. I'll do a short on my cruise corner that we call it, and that's where we keep all of our trophies and trinkets and just souvenirs that we got from the various cruises that we've been on. Yeah, yeah, that cruising is a big part of our lives. This is how our company got started. And yeah. And then, like Greg said, family, friends, those are huge drivers for who we are, right? They're the reason why we get out of bed. They're the reason why we do anything. I love technology. I love motorcycles. I love cruising, but I wouldn't do any of this if it wasn't for my family and my grandkids. And yeah, yeah. And that's pretty much
Yep.
my hobbies.
I think I missed one, and this is my sister's fault. We moved drivable distance to Disneyland, and my sister is a crazy Disney fanatic, and
I don't
so
think it's just your
it's
sister.
been well. She's gotten me hooked on it. It's and I've so we've been on like Jason goes on cruises a couple of times a year. We've been to Disneyland a couple of times a year,
Yeah,
more than a couple last year. But it's just it's that escape, right? And I
yes,
think that's part of the reason why you cruise too is you go and you just don't have to. It's just it lets you escape
yeah.
reality in a way that can refresh. I mean, it's amazing. I'll come back exhausted from Disneyland, but it's amazing that I can go out there and get up at 6 a.m. to rope drop walk 20,000 steps, come home at night and feel like I'm dying. And then the next morning I'm going, nope, I got to get
Yeah.
up and go again. I don't do that when I go out on a bike ride that wasn't great here, right? And I'll take no, I'm going to take the day off. I've got one of my YouTube channels has a couple of the videos from my latest trips up there. I got to get a couple more posted, but some super cool stuff. So that's us from personal standpoint. Let's talk about why we love tech and why we hate tech. So Jay, why do you love technology?
I just love making things work, right? Just with a challenge sometimes, even if it's something that I'm not going to use or not going to use often, or if it's something for someone else. I just like that challenge of taking something that's broken and fixing it. Much like a mechanic, I'm pretty sure there's mechanics out there that love, working on engines and stuff like that just to get it running, even if it's for friends or family or something like that. So yeah, I just love solving problems. And I just love cool technology. I like for, even if I'm not resolving an issue, I like to introduce technology from a company that resolved an issue, whether that be a calendar or which is, some of my favorite technology is just my plain old boring calendar. The microphone issue, like you had, like you mentioned earlier, like things like that, I just love it.
I love to see how technology can solve problems in my
Yep.
life and enhance my life. I mean, reading, so my sister and I are both big readers and we read a lot of very, very, very similar stuff. And I don't know how many hundreds of physical books she has in her home, but I live in an RV.
Hmm.
I don't even want to have 10 books in here because it's weight and it's space, but I have hundreds and hundreds of books across multiple apps. And I always am maxed out on Libby, which is the library app.
Hmm.
I'm always maxed out on how many books I have on hold, waiting for them to become available for me. So that's just one super simple example of why I love tech is I can learn how to do things with it. I can tinker with it when I want to. I also can, once I get it set, forget it for the most part, right? Once I get it where I
Right.
want it. But I love that it can solve problems in my life and help me to go back and focus on other things. Mountain biking is another really good example. I have an e-bike
Yeah.
now. I'm getting a little older. The knees aren't quite as happy as they used to be, but I like to go on like 20 plus mile bike rides. That's my ideal, but I can't quite do that as often or as easily with a regular mountain bike versus an
Yeah.
e-bike. So I actually just sold my regular mountain bike. So now all I have is my e-bike because it's technology that allows me to push further than I could to do some rides that I would never be able to do
Yeah.
without it, right? So that's why I love technology. On the flip side, one of the reasons I hate technology is because it's so complicated
Yeah.
nowadays, right? I mean, you think about my e-bike, for example, I still have to remember to charge it. And they've done a good job that the battery doesn't discharge much at all when it's not been used for a while, mostly because I bought a higher end bike, right? But it is more complicated. And when I think about my phone or I think about this MacBook I'm using or an iPad, they aren't just turn them on, sign in, and everything is golden and good to go. Even when you restore a new phone from the other phone, I had to do that a few weeks ago. I shattered the glass on a phone, so I got a new one and I restored the new one from the old one, but even yesterday, I had another app that I hadn't signed into and got
Hmm.
configured from when I did that transition. So there's always something associated with this stuff because it no longer just works. Everything has gotten so complicated and so feature packed. Now, I wouldn't give up most of the features and the functionality that's coming with it, but that's one of the things that super, super frustrates me about technology is it's hard to get it set up or it's hard to leverage it or take as much advantage of it as you could if we were able to have things a little
Yeah.
simpler.
I mentioned this before when we talked, but I hate those half measure kind of solutions to problems, right? I hate when companies release products that are half baked, right? It's not quite ready. They just want to rush it to market. They just want to be first. One of the things that stands out is remember when the Apple Watch was rumored, right? Pretty close rumor. I think it was in production or whatever. And every company rushed to throw out a smartwatch. Or, there was, what was it, Fitbit at the time, right? And it would count your steps and all of that. But so many companies rush to put email and text messages and stuff on a wristwatch on a device and just throw it out there in the market because once Apple releases it, that's going to be it for everyone. And that's exactly what happened. Another thing I hate is when companies force us to go backwards, right, with technology. You remember the VCR DVD combo, right? We knew DVD was going to be the way of the future, right? We knew it was coming. I think everyone reached a point where they said, okay, I'm only going to buy DVDs. I'm no longer buying VHSs. Yet they forced us to buy these VHS DVD combos. I hate when companies do things like that. They force you to use or purchase obsolete hardware, and they do this kind of the same with software and apps and stuff too now. One of the things I hate is scrolling through like a social media page or something, and you always see these ads for a big giant digital calendar that hangs on the wall. Now, while that's really cool to have a screen, it is still just a dedicated calendar, right? Why do that when everyone has a phone in their pocket with notifications that announces birthdays and meeting appointments and things like that right in your pocket? Why do you need to go to a centralized location? That's not how people function anymore. No one wants to crowd around the calendar in the living room anymore. You know?
Well, let me jump in on that. So I've got multiple households living with me right
Right.
now, and we've got to coordinate on a whole bunch of stuff. The problem is figuring out how to have the right shared
Hmm.
calendar, how to make sure everybody knows what that shared calendar is, knows has their notifications turned on
Right.
appropriately, knows which entry they're responsible, let's say picking up kids from school, right? You've got mom and dad trying to pick up kids for school. If you've got a shared calendar, well, how do I know this is dad's day to pick up the
Yeah.
kids or this is mom's day to pick up the kids? And so yes, you can do exactly what you're talking about, but it's not simple to make sure that everybody's in sync, everybody's calendars
Right.
are updated. And so, because it's just more complex than it used to be. So, I do see the appeal. I would never do
Right.
that, but I do see the appeal of having something like that where it's a little more visual. It's right there. One person's administering the whole thing so that it gets the way it needs to be versus the world that we live in, which is here's a shared calendar, everybody can contribute to it. I'm seeing notifications flying, this got removed, that didn't get removed, I don't know why that got removed, but it was my
Yeah.
responsibility. Has anybody told me why I no longer have to do that? So I just think it gets a little more complicated when you do that kind of stuff. But I agree with you, that seems like a waste. But then I think about setting that up for a complex
Yeah.
family. It's not easy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not. And it's outside of whatever ecosystem, whether that's Android or iOS or something like that. It functions outside of everything else that you use, and then setting it up, configuring it and making sure everyone knows how to use it and all of that. It just doesn't make any sense when everyone, including the grandkids, has an iPad with the calendar and stuff on it. Now, the
Yep.
training part, that's all to make sure everyone is synced and using the right calendar and on the shared and getting notifications like they should. That's our part. I just don't like the idea of buying old technology in a new package,
Yeah.
right? It is a fancy
Yep.
calendar. It looks really cool. If you have the wall space for it, you hang it there, and all of the ads show the kids and the kids loving to put little smiley faces and stuff on it. So I get it. It has its appeal, but
Right.
it is redundant technology because in order to have all of that, you still need a phone or a tablet or a computer, internet access and stuff like that. So I just hate when
Yep.
companies force people to go backwards, right? You mentioned another
Yep.
really good example of buying a microphone for the gig you have coming up, yet the microphone that you have on you already is the best, right? I bought a webcam because I wanted to test it out with the iPad OS, and still the best camera is recording right here on the iPhone. That is the best camera that
Yep.
I'm going to buy, right? I'm not going to buy a $1,500 Cisco, webcam or something like that.
Yeah.
The best one is just the iPhone. So it's having all of this extra technology when the best thing is what you have right now in your possession, and learning how to use that
Yep.
to the best of his ability is what we want to do with the show.
Yep. I think that's a good point, and something we'll do is teach how to use what you have, not necessarily tell you you have to have a whole bunch of
Right.
extra technology in your life. Because honestly, to produce this show, I bought a microphone and some
Yeah.
tripods. Other than that, it's stuff I already was going to be using for other things in my life. So, on that, Jason, what is your current tech stack? We're just going to list off our current tech stack so you can understand where we're coming from when we're talking about what we're using on a daily
Yeah.
basis.
So, and I'll go high level. There's some things too I want to dive a little deeper in, but for the most part, I'll just do high level. So AT&T fiber here, the home internet, the fastest internet I've ever had. And one of the things that you wouldn't think you would consider, but if we ever sell this house and move somewhere else, the internet is something that I'm definitely going to have to weigh in whatever area that we come into. I know people look for schools. They want the best schools for their kids and stuff like, no, I need the best internet. I'm using a TP-Link Deco mesh routing system. Some news that I've heard is not promising with that, with the government thinking about blocking companies like TP-Link and stuff like that. So I may be changing that up later this year. More on that to come later. But the mesh routing system is what I use here. My daily driver, the best iPhone ever, at least until September. And this is one of the
Yep.
first times that I've heard that and it wasn't cliche to me. Like, this is truly the best iPhone ever. I love it. I'm using a combination of security cameras, which I didn't like to do, but now everything is running in sync now because I'm using a server that I'm running called Scripted. So, and I'll go into details on that on another episode. But yeah, basically the scripted server allows me to use my existing cameras in HomeKit and they're running HomeKit secure. So I can view the videos and stuff just like I would a regular HomeKit secure camera. So really cool. One of my favorite pieces of tech that I'm running is my Plex Media Server, another application called Plex Amp for music. The media server is for, well, it serves everything, but Plex Amp is for music. Plex is for videos and things like that. And Audio Bookshelf is for my ebooks and audiobooks and things like that. And that's all running on my NAS, which has grown way beyond just storing and backing up our files, our phones and stuff like that. Like I said, I'm running several servers on it now, that the scripted server being one, the Plex Media server being another one that kind of helped me to cancel Netflix. And well, Prime Video we keep because of the Prime, and HBO we get for free because of AT&T, but cancel a lot of the other video services that we had and still be able to stream a lot of media that I've already had. I had tons and tons of CDs and all of that. Greg, you remember those days where we used to be able to rip CDs from and a lot of that music, even if I'm listening to Pandora, I'm listening to the old music that I have anyway, right? I can't think of any new artists that I want to listen to. So, and I have access to that no matter where I'm at. And again, I'll go into details on that on a later episode, but I have my Series X, my Microsoft Xbox, the Series X, which I have in here, favorite child, because my kids have this thing where they're always like, "Oh, dad's favorite, dad's favorite." My daughter's like, "Well, Jalen is his favorite," or J1 is like, "No, Jasenia is his favorite child," or something like that. I'm like, guys, calm down. Y'all all fighting for second place behind my Xbox anyway, so all of y'all are my second favorite child. But yeah, so I have my Xbox. I have my Zelda Switch, although hadn't played it in months. I love all of my Zelda games. You'll see me wear Zelda shirts just like Fallout shirts. Another cool piece of tech is I have CarPlay even on my motorcycle. And I also have an additional portable CarPlay unit that we were using in the other vehicle, but we traded that out for something a little more simpler. And I can explain later, but at the center of my entire digital life is probably my favorite device, and that's my iPad Pro, right? Just keeps everything in sync. It keeps me in touch with everything, everyone else's devices and things like that. This is the center of my digital life, which is my iPad. So what about you, Greg?
I do miss fiber internet. I have T-Mobile home
Yeah,
internet.
which is pretty
It's fine.
fast.
I can get 300, 400 down. I really miss the upload speeds
Right.
of fiber, especially when I'm uploading an hour long 4K video to YouTube, but it works great. I'm using Eero Mesh Home Network. It's something I wish Apple had bought instead of Amazon, but there you
Yeah.
go. It works great. I actually have an Eero network set up at my in-laws too that I can see and troubleshoot if I need to, although they've got somebody living there now that can troubleshoot it. So they've got my old gear. I have a newer set of stuff, but works amazingly well. I've got UFI security cameras in the bridge. And the nice thing about that is it does put it into secure home video. So can access it either way, either through the UFI app or from the home app. So those have been great here. 17 Pro Max, just like Jason, except for do not have the bright orange. That's Jason's. MacBook M3, which is what I'm recording on right now. I really wish I could do everything on the iPad Pro. There's just still too much friction. I did do some testing. The problem is we use Riverside, and Chrome on Riverside does not work the same as Chrome on the Mac, which we talked about in the Mac episode, that we really need to get that fixed. So I cannot edit our shows on my iPad. So I'm bound to a Mac. Which Mac that continues to be, I guess we'll see as the year goes on, because I'm really still tempted to swap this out for a Neo, because I'd probably get some credit. I'd probably have some Apple credit buying the Neo with the trade-in value on this. But I don't know if I have the patience to deal with how slow it would be, but we'll see. It's on my mind. We'll put it that way. My iPad is the iPad Pro M4, the 13-inch. So I'm one processor generation back, tempted to go to the 5, but now that I can't do the Riverside stuff, I can do a lot of the other stuff that I do. Like for my video work, I could do it on the iPad if I wanted to. DaVinci Resolve seems to work just fine. I might test some of that this weekend when I'm editing the wedding footage. So yes, I have the iPad mini still. I took it to church 2 Sundays ago in my jacket pocket in Jason's honor. If you don't know what that means, you need to go listen to the iPad episode. It fits in there nicely, but I do have the previous generation. AirPods Pro 3, AirPods Max, which you can see I'm using right now. Shocks Open Fit. Yes, I have headphones for each occasion. The microphone I'm currently using is a Pop Voice wireless microphone. It's awesome. And Riverside does a really, really good job of cleaning up any audio issues. I also have a second 17 Pro Max for video, which is what I'm recording the video on right now, which will be the primary device I use to record the wedding coming up this weekend. So it'll be on that secondary device, not on my primary. And then for fun stuff, I have a Mario Edition Switch. I really don't play it a whole lot anymore. I think my grandkids have played it more than I have over the last 6 months. So I just don't have time. I'd love to get the Switch 2. I really want to play Donkey Kong Bonanza, but I don't have time for that kind of stuff right now. My e-bike is a specialized stump jumper Levo. So it's basically the same mountain bike that I had, just the e-bike version of it. Not quite as high-end as the mountain bike from a component standpoint. And then both of our cars have CarPlay, wired and wireless. And I can tell you there is a massive difference in using wireless versus wired. Even when I'm driving for Uber, I find myself having to disconnect from the wired CarPlay and plugging it back in to make sure notifications and stuff work appropriately. So the wireless is the way to go. We tried a little wireless adapter, but where there were 2 of us potentially driving that car, it would get confused as to who it should connect to if we were both in the car. That's my stack.
It sounds pretty good. And we can go into details, guys, if you had any questions about anything that we named. Or
we do want to understand, there's certain things that we use that you're super interested in. Like I've got Shocks Fit headphones that are not the norm. You would not expect me to have those. They're a very different technology. They're not an Apple product. If you'd like to learn more about bone conduction technology and why I go with those, and why this is like the 3rd set of shocks that I've had, and my daughter's had them too, we'd be happy to dive into that. Any of these things that we've mentioned, any other topics that you want us to cover, drop it in the comments or go to our website, The Tech Grandpas, because we are The Tech Grandpas, thetechgrandpas.com. We'll have the link in the show notes. We'll have it in the description on the YouTube channel. Go to the website. You can hit the contact us. It'll send us an email right now. That's the best way to, if you don't want to put something in the public comments, we'll check those emails. We really want to know, what can we help you with? These are the things we use, but we're also not opposed to doing research for other things. I mean, we love justifying tech purchases and tech time because we can help somebody solve a problem. We just need to know so that we can explain why we're spending time and or money on something that's not for us. So yeah, let us know in the comments, hit that contact us, check out our website. We've got the iPhone list up the Mac list, as well as a list of where we get some of our news. We'll be out with a new episode, probably not for a couple of weeks beyond what we've already got. I'm thinking, Jason, our next episode, we should talk about apps, the apps that we can't live
Right.
without, and maybe dive into the app side since we've done so much along the hardware end. So maybe we'll figure that out. That's an idea. If you're interested in that, let us know. Say yes, please do that, or no, please do something else. We'd be happy to adjust our programming based on your
Yep.
needs. Thanks, everybody, and hope you have a great day.
Thanks. We'll see you next time.